The last time I addressed this wonderful body was hang on, wasn't quite that long ago, 2009 in October at the Conservative Party conference in Manchester.
Please, can you up the mic?
No, I hate the microphones. If you can't hear, you have to move forward. The last time I addressed this wonderful body was in Manchester at the Conservative Party conference, where I received a reception so frozen for what I said that I came to believe in man-made global cooling. For what I said was this, that the only future for this country was the destruction of the Conservative Party. And that those present, and I wasn't joking, and those present should make sure that under no circumstances whatsoever at all should they ever vote for that disgraceful, treacherous body again. And I described it as the Rohypnol conference, the date rape conference, at which numbers of people had been somehow or other rendered unconscious by Mr. Cameron and marched like zombies into his election campaign, from which they would gain nothing. And I would like also here slightly to tease David, who I was going to say was the Louise Bagshaw of the Conservative Party, where he wanders in and out of one party and then again into another. Then I remember that Louise Bagshaw is in the Conservative Party already, so they have two of them, and she's now called Louise Mensch. There is a problem which we face, which is that everything that David said about the European Union, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with, is absolutely true. We could leave it tomorrow to a huge advantage. There is absolutely no reason why we should stay in it, and many, many hundreds of reasons why we should leave it. But I can absolutely assure you that a year from hence we'll be exactly where we are now, stuck in the European Union. Because there is no political party in this country of any importance which advocates withdrawal. And one of the things which I had come here to say tonight is how very unenthusiastic I am about all this futile talk of referendums. Because I'm afraid that even if a referendum in this country could be held on the straightforward question of whether we should leave or not, and even if, despite the immense propaganda forces of the BBC, such a referendum could be made to come up with the answer, yes, we should leave, we wouldn't leave because the government wouldn't abide by it. It would, at the very best, use it as a tool for what it would call renegotiation. Now, some of you here may be as old as I am, and able, therefore, to remember Harold Wilson's renegotiation of our terms of entry. And there is no such thing, ladies and gentlemen, as renegotiation. You're either in it, or you're not in it, just as you're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. And we are in it. We are in it, indeed. And we are in it, and the Conservative Party is in it. Indeed, I would say that the European Union is in the Conservative Party's DNA. I could go into the reasons for that. I think they stretch back to the Suez catastrophe and to a total loss of confidence in ourselves, which David mentioned. But I don't quite see how his logic then takes him to leave UKIP, for all its faults, a party which is correct on this issue, and join the Conservative Party, led by a man who is quite plainly an enthusiast for the European Union. And what I this evening was the curious delusion among conservative-minded people in this country, not just over the European Union, but over so many other things, the curious delusion which persists and persists and persists, that they are represented in any way at Westminster. That the Conservative Party is in any way a vehicle or transmission belt for conservative thought or feeling, that the Conservative Party has any capacity to examine the thinking and policies of the left and to oppose them, that the Conservative Party at any stage in its history has reversed a single one of the many, many deeply damaging laws passed by the Labour Party in its terms in office, that the Conservative Party has, in its own terms in office, refrained from itself passing many, many such damaging laws. And I am absolutely astonished that this persists. I said that, as I say, before the 2010 election, that the only choice which Britain had at that coming election was as follows. It could not sack the government. Whoever you voted for, you would get the same government. A government which was in favour of remaining in the European Union, a government which was in favour of mass immigration, a government which was in favour of permitting the increase of crime and disorder, a government which hated proper education, a government which by and large loathed this country and was particularly, I have to say, prejudiced against the independent middle classes. You would get that whoever won. However, you did have another choice. Because the Conservative Party at that stage had lost 3 elections in a row, it could not have withstood losing catastrophically a 4th. You did have the choice. You couldn't sack the government. You could have sacked the opposition. And as I say, making this case brought me up directly against this extraordinary delusion among conservative-minded people in this country. The response was not, yes, this is an interesting possibility. The response was, in many cases, anger, and in some cases, blank refusal to understand what I was saying. I've since received a number of letters from people who were at that meeting saying, well, look, you were right. I'm terribly sorry that I responded in that way. But that is actually of no use, because I'm afraid the delusion persists. We are here, sitting here tonight, talking as if there was some possibility of serious political change in this country. And yet, the person who supposedly represents us is the person who has probably sent spies to this meeting to see who's here, particularly politically, who has certainly sent out word to his party so utterly intolerant of our opinions that I don't know whether any of you listen still to the BBC or to Radio 4, but you would have heard last night on the analysis programme 2 Tory MPs appearing. However, they appeared as if they were dissidents in some totalitarian police state. Their words were spoken by actors because they did not dare to have their voices recognised by the whips. Can you imagine a political party in which that was the case being in any way acceptable to anybody in this room? Can you see why it should be? Can you think of any reason why you should persist in any kind of connection with it? Can you explain to me what David Campbell Bannerman is doing in it? Can you explain to me why it is that we cannot move beyond this point? I cannot say more firmly tonight than I cannot say more firmly tonight than I have said at any other moment in my life, and I cannot point more firmly to evidence of my case, that there is no help from that direction. And as long as that is so, in a 2-party parliamentary system, we are powerless. Therefore, if there is to be any serious discussion of the things that the people in this room want, it has to begin here, on this topic and at this point. How is it that we are to bulldoze this dreadful anti-British party out of the way, to destroy it, and to replace it with something which will seriously represent our desires and will rescue this country from its enemies? Unless and until we have done that,